In this video, I'm going to explain what the K-1 visa is, who qualifies, how the process works, and some of the biggest misconceptions people have before they ever file. And make sure you stick around until the end because I'm going to clear up 3 of the biggest misconceptions about the K-1 visa that can trip up even well-prepared couples. So let's get started. Welcome to the Global Immigrant. I'm Brian, and my wife and I went through the K-1 visa process ourselves, and I know how overwhelming it can feel, especially when you're just getting started. And that's why I created this channel, to simplify U.S. immigration and help you understand the process one step at a time. So if you're planning to bring your fiancé to the United States, you're in the right place. What is a K-1 visa? It's a visa that allows the fiancé of a U.S. citizen to come to the United States so the two of you can get married. There are a few important things to understand about that. First, only a U.S. citizen can petition for a K-1 visa. So if you're a permanent resident, meaning a green card holder, you'll need a different immigration process, which we're going to cover in another series. Second, once the visa is approved and your fiancé enters the United States, you generally have 90 days to get married, and that 90-day clock starts when they enter the United States, all right? It's not when the visa is approved. Finally, getting married isn't the end of the process. After the wedding, you'll file another application called the adjustment of status, so your spouse can apply for lawful permanent resident status, which is a fancy way of saying a green card. So while people often think of the K-1 as one application, it's really the beginning of a much larger immigration journey. Who qualifies? So now that you know what a K-1 visa is, let's talk about who actually qualifies. So there are 4 big questions USCIS is going to ask. Number 1, are you a U.S. citizen? The person filing the petition must be a U.S. citizen. So if you're just a green card holder, the K-1 isn't available to you. There are other options for you, but this video is specifically about the K-1 visa, and the K-1 is specifically for U.S. citizens. So number 2, both of you are legally free to marry. If either person has been married before, that marriage must have legally ended through divorce, annulment, or the death of a spouse before you can file. Number 3, do you genuinely intend to get married? So the K-1 visa isn't designed for couples who want to see how things go, right? It's not a dating visa. It's for couples who have already made the decision to get married, are already engaged, and you generally must marry within 90 days after your fiancé enters the United States. And number 4 is, have you met each other in person? So in most cases, you must have met your fiancé in person at least once during the 2 years prior to filing your petition. There are a few very limited exceptions, but for the vast majority of couples, you need to have actually met this requirement. So if you can answer yes to all 4 of these, then we're off to a great start here. The K-1 journey. So what does the K-1 process actually look like? Well, it all starts when the citizen, the U.S. citizen, files the Form I-129F. Okay, this is the petition for alien fiancé. Now, here's what confuses a lot of people. Okay, the I-129F is not the K-1 visa application. Okay, you're not actually applying for the visa yet. Think of it more like you meet all the requirements and now you're asking permission to file for a K-1 visa, right? That's what the I-129F is. It's petitioning the government for permission to file for the visa. So it's step 1. Now, if the USCIS approves your I-129F petition, your case is then sent to the National Visa Center, which is always called the NVC, right? The NVC will review your case and forward it to the appropriate U.S. embassy or consulate where your fiancé will complete the required visa application. And she will do that. Now, you can do it for her, but she's going to have to sign it and do all that, right? Then she's going to have to do a medical exam and then go to a visa interview. If the visa is approved, then your fiancé can travel to the United States. Now, once they arrive, as we've mentioned before, you have 90 days to get married. After you're married, you file the I-485, okay? This is the application to register permanent residence, right? Your adjustment of status. It's your application for your green card, okay? That's the fancy way to say this is how you apply for a green card. Now, once your fiance gets here, they need to have that before they can leave the United States. You have to have permanent resident status because your K-1 visa is a one-time entry visa. So they can't come over here, hang out for a couple weeks, you get married, then go visit family back in Mexico or the Philippines or wherever they're from. They will not be allowed to re-enter, and they'll have to go through the whole process again. All right? So to get around this, many couples who file the I-485 will also file a Form I-765, which is work authorization that will allow your fiance to work while they wait for the green card, and the Form I-131 for travel authorization. This is what will allow them to leave the country and come back in. Now, a little tip, that I-131, last time I looked into it, takes just as long as the green card process. So unless you have issues with your I-485 to get your green card, they're going to get approved at the same time. So I would suggest saving your money on that, but you can file it at the same time just in case you had delays. All right. Now that might sound like a lot, and honestly it is, okay? But don't let it overwhelm you. Over the next several episodes, we're going to walk through every step of this process together, okay? I'm going to break it down for you. We'll complete the I-129F line by line, build your petition packet. I'll explain what happens at USCIS and the National Visa Center. We'll prepare for the embassy interview and medical exam, cover what happens when your fiance arrives in the United States, and walk through the adjustment of status process after you're married. We're going to cover it all. So if you don't want to miss any of those videos, make sure you subscribe. My goal is to take a process that seems really complicated and break it down into simple, manageable steps that anyone can follow. So before we wrap up, I want to clear up the 3 biggest misconceptions I hear about the K-1 visa. Misconception number 1. Once my fiance gets the visa, we only have 90 days to travel to the United States. Okay, that's not quite true. The 90-day clock doesn't start when the visa is approved. The 90-day clock is for when they're in the US, okay? You have 90 days to get married. So in most cases, the K-1 visa is valid for up to 6 months or until the expiration date printed on the visa. So your fiance will get a visa in their passport when they go to the embassy, okay? And then they'll have until that expiration date to travel to the United States. Once they're admitted, that's when your 90-day countdown begins. Misconception number 2. Once we get married, my spouse automatically gets a green card. So unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. After you're married, you still need to file the Form I-485, okay, the adjustment of status. So your spouse can apply for a green card while staying in the United States. So the process isn't immediate like a CR1 spousal visa. Okay, it's a different process. And the processing times vary depending on your local USCIS office and current workloads, and it can take months sometimes before a decision is made. Now, don't let that get you down, because for us, after we had our interview, I mean, it was almost immediate. And then she got her green card in the mail a couple weeks after our interview. Now, we'll cover the entire adjustment of status process later in this series. Now, misconception number 3. Once the paperwork is filed, the hard part is over. So for my wife and I, that wasn't the case at all. For us, the hardest part wasn't filling out the paperwork. It was waiting. So waiting for USCIS to make a decision on our I-129F petition felt like it took forever. But here's the encouraging part, okay? Once our 129F was approved, we got our embassy interview scheduled, everything seemed to move pretty quick. So for us, in our case, after the 129F, it seemed like the ball kept rolling. Now, every case is different, so your timeline may not look exactly like ours, but don't get discouraged if it feels like nothing's happening during those long waiting periods. That's totally normal. It's a normal part of the process for many couples. Everyone gets impatient when they're waiting to be with the one they love, right? If you've made it this far, hopefully now you have a much better understanding of how the whole process works, who qualifies, and hopefully the K-1 doesn't feel quite as intimidating now as it did a few minutes ago. In the next episode, we're going to answer one of the biggest questions couples have before they ever file. Should you hire an immigration lawyer for your K-1 visa? I'll share my personal experience, what I expected, what actually happened. Here's a little spoiler. I kind of got scammed. At least that's how it felt. We'll also talk about when hiring an attorney makes sense and when it may not. So if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. It helps our channel reach more couples that are going through this same journey. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in episode 2.